Hello, and welcome back to Jane Doe Reads. I am your host, Jane Doe, here for your reading needs. Now, as always, I do have permission from the lovely author, QueenStarrOfTheUniverse, to post their fic here on YouTube. Now, let's get into the tags. The tags on screen for you guys today are the ones that I think are the most important, the ones that are bolded. Please take your time to pause and read over the screen because each tag is important, and I want you to understand what you are getting into. Now, I'm really excited about this chapter, so let's get into this. This is Adventures of a Screwed Up Clone by QueenStarrOfTheUniverse. Chapter 7. Imagine being an adolescent king, LMAO.
Hello, my friend.
Greets the hulking canine-shaped monster lurking in the darkness of the forest.
I am glad to see you are well.
Danny grins and launches herself at the glowing beast, throwing her arms around his neck and burying her face in his coarse fur. She switches her language to Esperanto too and replies,
Me too, Wolf.
I
missed you.
I missed you. Wolf stands on his hind legs, lifting Danny into the air so he can return the hug, long claws carefully angled away so he doesn't nick her. After an awkward pat, Wolf physiology doesn't account for bear hugs. He sets her back down. Danny lets go and steps away, smiling brightly.
Shall we?
She asks. Wolf stretches low in response, offering his broad back to her. She bows back, a wordless thank you for allowing her to take this journey riding him. Wolf isn't a pack mule, and as far as Danny is aware, she is the only one allowed to travel like this. She hops on his back and wraps her arms around his neck, burying her fingers in the wiry fur. The ghost stands back up and throws his head back to howl, something Danny knows means joyful reunion, friend meeting. He then slashes his paw forward, ripping open the fabric between realms and opening a small, unstable portal that quickly closes behind them as they soon pass through it. She missed Wolf. Traveling with him is breathlessly fast and effortless. The green lightning of the zone replaces the darkness of before. Danny looks around to admire the scenery. Like most of the zone, the surrounding area is full of floating doors and islands, little pieces of culture from across time and space dotting the landscape in a seemingly lawless manner. She has no idea where they are. Luckily, Wolf has traveled these realms longer than Danny can even imagine, and he doesn't hesitate to fly towards where she assumes the keep is located. Danny feels the ectoplasm seeping into her core, revitalizing her in the way a cool shower would after a long day. Like Danny can filter out the ambient ectoplasm in the mortal realm to sustain her own core. But after a while, it gets a little tiring. Being in the zone lets her take a little break, fill her core with pure ectoplasm free of emotion and soul that taint what's present in the mortal realm. Like a ghostly cleanse. They only travel for a little over an hour before Danny can spot Phantom's Keep, where it would have taken Danny at least 2 hours even if she knew where she was going. Just like the monarchy of the realms itself, the castle is something Danny inherited not long after he defeated the previous ghost king, Pariah Dark. Apparently, it used to look a lot more daunting, all Gothic architecture with Dark Age vibes. Now, it has more of a European influence, the ashlar polished white stone with the black crowstep roofs. The castle is huge, as you might expect, with a half a dozen separate towers around the main building that is the size of a shopping mall. There's a small town around the castle proper, bustling with the occasional ghosts that flock to Danny's castle to live in his protection. It is a bit bigger than when Danny last saw it, looking more like an actual town than a couple of random houses. Oddly enough, there are guards roaming around. Danny wasn't aware Danny began employing guards, given he doesn't often spend more than a few hours a week at the keep. On their way over the curtain wall, a pair of medieval-looking knights pause them, but they're quick to wave them through once they see whom it is. Wolf angles his flight down to the main doors of the keep. There, another pair of guards stand at the huge ornate doors, with curling green filigree.
Princess,
they say in unison, both bending at the waist in a slight bow.
the king is expecting you.
Is also in unison. Danny wonders if they're the same ghost split into two duplicates. If they're not, did they practice this? There's no way they just coincidentally said the same thing at the same time, right? Danny gives them a cheeky grin.
I know. He invited me.
She approaches the door, and it's open from the inside by two sharply dressed ghosts. Two older-looking men with suits, one much more modern than the other. Danny is going to tease Danny relentlessly about this. Where did all these servants come from? Wolf follows behind her, his tail lashing anxiously back and forth. Danny sets a comforting hand on his back, and he gives her a grateful look. The castle may look different, but from what Danny's gathered, once upon a time, Wolf was sentenced to eternity in prison here by the past king. This way, your highness, one of the butlers directs, floating back and gesturing ahead of them to where Danny knows the throne room is. Danny nods at them with a bright smile. She'll have to thoroughly converse with these two later, finding out why they want to serve an awkward adolescent dean rather than relax for eternity. She and Wolf head into the hallway leading to the throne room. Following the trend, there are guards at the doors and a couple of servant-like ghosts floating around, bowing as she passes. It's weird. The guard opens the doors in sync, announcing Danny with a booming voice. Her Highness, Danny Phantom, Princess of the Realms and beloved sister to the High King. Danny gives the guard to her right an incredulous look. When did she get so many titles? Where did all this pomp and circumstance come from? Last time she was here, there was only a fraction of the posturing Everghost seems to be doing now. When she turns to look into the throne room, Danny understands a little bit better. Danny is in full king regalia on his throne, the crown of fire, a silvery icy inferno above his head, his galaxy cape fluttering in a non-existent breeze where it's draped over one of the arms of the throne. The smaller throne to his right is occupied by Jazz, who stopped scribbling notes on her clipboard to smile at Danny as she enters. The rest of the room is occupied by several observants, some ancients, and many other royal-looking ghosts. A few servants thrown in here and there with plates of refreshments or writing materials. All eyes are trained on her. She gives them a two-fingered salute and floats down the aisle through the gauntlet of guards standing at attention on either side of the long strip of carpet. Wolf pads after her, growling at anyone who looks at him too long. When they reach the large dais before Danny's opposing throne, Danny gives him a mocking courtesy, pitching the edges of her sweatshirt as if it was a gown. Wolf, much more genuine, bows low. Thank you for escorting my sister, Wolf. Danny says in Esperanto. Danny studies him. He looks like he hasn't slept in a week and is running off of fumes.
Of course, my king.
Wolf replies. Danny gives him a genuine smile, even if it looks strained from his clear exhaustion. You may leave if you wish. Danny tells him. Danny wonders where in the realms he learned to talk like this. Wolf nods his head in respect, gives Danny one last nuzzle, and flies down the aisle to be led out of the throne room. Danny will catch up with him later. He's not comfortable being around a lot of different people, especially guards. So they'll hang out by themselves later. Danny stands awkwardly, looking at her brother, feeling the weight of the gazes on her back.
So, you called me?
Danny exhales, looking over the rest of the room's occupants. Yeah, let me just finish up here. It's been dragging on longer than it should. He glares in the general direction of the floating eyeballs. But we should be done soon. You can join us, or I can meet you later in your room. He gestures at the throne on his left. Is that one for her? Why in the realms would she need a throne? She's a princess by association only. Wait, all princesses are princesses by association. Huh. But still, her royal status is a technicality at best.
I'm gonna go add my new maps to my collection.
Danny decides, shaking her backpack in his general direction.
I'll see you in a bit.
Danny nods. Danny gives Jazz a bit of a wave, noting the strain on her face too, and slips behind Danny's throne to the smaller, more restricted door behind the dais. Another guard. Seriously, who are all these guys? Lets her through. When the door shuts behind her, Danny shakes off the strange, authoritative tension. Are these the meetings Danny told her about? They seem awful. Also, from what Danny knows, Jazz isn't a common guest in attendance. Danny flies up to her rooms, smiling lightly at every ghost she encounters. When she gets to her main door, she sighs in relief at the lack of guards in the hall. It seems like the royal wing is a bit more off limits. Danny enters her receiving room. It's honestly the most unnecessary thing. A large, semicircular room where there are more doors to the other rooms, a dining table and chairs, and plenty of places to sit where guests can wait for her. Danny doesn't really see the point to the room, but she appreciates that the seats are at least super comfortable. Kicking off her shoes, just because she's not walking doesn't mean she shouldn't keep her shoes on inside. And shucking her backpack, Danny enters her bedroom proper, the one with the actual bed. As she expected, there's a tiny little ball of energy waiting for her on the dog bed in the corner.
Cujo!
Said dog launches himself into Danny's waiting arms, instantly getting to work and applying all the slobber in his tiny body to Danny's face. Danny tries to return half of his enthusiasm by rapidly petting his sides. The excitable puppy doesn't allow Danny to set him down until she's covered in hair and slobber. Danny accepts her sticky fate and continues scratching Cujo even after his initial energy relaxes and he switches his affections to his squeaky toy. He shows her his toy and she coos over it until he feels she's given it the appropriate amount of attention before he goes back to chewing it. Danny washes her face in her bathroom sink so it's not so gross and then grabs her backpack. Time for her to add to her collection. Danny's map room is a long hallway through the door to the right of her bedroom. There are maps hanging above bookshelves embedded in the wall, which are stuffed with all the maps Danny loves but deems unsuitable for display for some reason or another. Sporadic shelves display sextants and compasses. The hallway stretches to a large circular room with Danny's favorites, surrounding a large wooden table where map supplies lay scattered where she last left them. She shuffles a stack of papers off to the side so she can have a place to set out her new stuff. She dropped by around 6 weeks ago, right after Belgium. The only souvenirs she's collected since are from her trip to America and all the stuff from Bloodhaven. The nautical map from the museum is separated from a dozen crappier maps she's gotten from City Hall and the odd grocery store. She also sets aside the Atlantic map she copied from the captain's log on the ship she took from Europe and a hand-drawn sketch of the safe alleyways in Bloodhaven a sweet homeless lady took the time to draw up for her. Her own drawing is set aside so she can redraw it with her fancier supplies, and the other two go to Danny's current travel binder and are added to the next available empty plastic sheets. She also puts in the ship ticket stub, the dollar bill from Anaru, the reprinted newspaper article of the dog snake monster thing, and the itinerary of the Bloodhaven ghost tour. In another book, she slips in a few postcards she accumulated over the past month. Then she has her stuff from Dick, a battered, soaked, and slightly singed waffle recipe, a clip of burnt hair, the whaling pamphlet from their day on the sea, a fish sticker and the cut of fishing line, and, of course, the pictures of her son Gregory. These things are a bit too special to be shuffled into one of Danny's travel books. They deserve more than that. So, Danny gets out her scrapbooking stuff and starts arranging all the keepsakes on the thick pieces of cardstock. She scribbles in her favorite memories on the margins, and she uses colors and stickers and all kinds of different tape. She finds herself disappointed in the lack of pictures, something she never really missed before. The postcards have always captured the places she visited fairly well, and she never felt the pressing need to have pictures of people she ran into. It's not as though cameras liked her very much, so it always seems pointless. But now, she kind of wishes she had pictures of her and Dick's adventures. Maybe she should get a film camera. The less sophisticated the tech, the easier it is for her to handle them without it all getting scrambled. And the film just needs to be dipped in chemicals and dried, right? Danny heard that was how they used to do it somewhere, without pixels. It should be fairly easy to get a clear photo. For now, she focuses on gluing down some star confetti around her son. Her focus is consumed by her task, and before she knows it, Danny is tapping her shoulder with a huge grin. Danny drops her pen and throws herself into her brother's arms, which are only too willingly to squeeze her tight. Welcome back, Mini-Me. Danny smiles wide and gives him another squeeze before floating back. He has lost the crown, cape, and the outer coat of his fancy, kingly clothes. But he hasn't changed into his normal jumpsuit. Jazz stands at the opening of the hallway, smiling at the two of them. Danny flies over to give her a hug, too. "It's good to see you, little sis," Jazz says. "And, by the ancients, is your hair brushed?" Danny gives a theatrical gasp, and suddenly there's two hands picking up the sections of her hair and running their fingers through it. No, it's not freshly brushed. Dick brushed it a couple of days ago when they had an evening in to eat bad Chinese and finish binging their glass-blowing show. Danny has to smile at the memory of her stabbing some orange chicken with her chopsticks and shouting at one of the contestants for reusing the dead mom story to promote his mediocre piece. The guy won, and Danny rioted. The hands in her hair started to annoy her, and she shoves them away.
Get off, you creeps. I can brush my hair.
She's met with bland disbelief from both Fenton siblings. Danny wilts.
Okay, fine. Someone else brushed it. But I was distracted by Thomas spitting on his mom's grave for the second time. Like, come up with another dead parent, you know? He already did the mom, dad, and uncle. I'm thinking he should have just gone with a second dad, like a godfather or something.
Danny and Jazz exchange confused glances, and Jazz asks, "Thomas?"
On the show,
Danny explains, knowing it doesn't explain much at all.
He put his hand through the molten glass and the glove burned and it looked terrible. But then he spun this whole story about his mother reaching through the veil or something, and they let him win. Really milking the orphan angle, am I right?
The older teens look at each other again. Huh? Jazz eventually just rolls her eyes. Are you trying to distract us from asking who exactly got close enough to brush your hair? Because it's not working. Jazz glances at her brother. Then amends. On me? Danny shrugs, giving them an innocent smile. Danny still looks lost, but Jazz folds her arms and views her with fond amusement.
Anyway,
Danny says,
why did you call me? Is it time for a checkup?
She hadn't gotten one last time she dropped by. It was unexpected, and Danny hadn't even been around. Danny visibly shakes off the confusion and then answers, "Yeah, that would be good, but mostly I just wanted to warn you to stay out of America for the time being. Not that I'm too worried you will be, but just in case." Warn her away from America? Why?
I got some bad news for you, King. America is my current country.
Danny's face falls. Uh-oh. Danny stands akimbo, ready for his explanation, but Jazz cuts in. "Let's get some food and sit down. It's a bit of a story." They do just that. Adjoining to Danny's sitting room, where a couple of serving maids bring out some fancy chicken and mashed potatoes that glow ectoplasmic green. But in a good way, not in the Maddie tried making hot dogs with eco-contaminated utensils way. Danny digs in, loving the shock of energy that comes from directly consuming ectoplasm. Jazz ignores her own, but Danny also inhales his with gusto, clearly as famished as Danny. "What's with our maids?" Danny asks around her chicken. Jazz glares at her, so Danny shuts her mouth and finishes chewing. Danny spins his spoon in his mashed potatoes. They just kind of appeared. Dora. You remember Dora, right? You guys met briefly when she dropped off some clothes for you? Which happened the first time Danny visited the keep 6 months ago. Well, anyway, Dora vetted all of them and they just kind of started working here. It's weird, but they get really offended when I try to tell them I don't need their help. Why would they choose servitude over their own eternities? Danny wonders. Danny slams his hands down on the either side of his plate. I know, right? That's what I said. But apparently serving the High King is an honor a ton of people want. I'm 16. I only won against Pariah with an ectoskeleton and a whole lot of dumb luck. What could possibly be the appeal of cleaning a castle that almost never gets dirty instead of relaxing on a beach with their family somewhere? He pauses his rant, visibly calming himself. I've been advised to pick my own battles. If they want to do it, I guess I can't stop them. Jazz nods approvingly. All right, Danny allows. I guess if they want to, stopping them would be unnecessarily mean. Danny exhales a heavy sigh. This whole king thing is really spiraling out of control. Like with that whole meeting? Yeah, that one was a long one. Danny sighs. Jazz doesn't have Friday classes, so she's offered to help keep notes. Normally, I have Yuri do it, but Jazz has a better insight on this particular issue. Who's Yuri? Danny asks. She has so many questions. She left for a few months, not decades. How did everything change so fast? My secretary, kinda, Danny answers, waving it off. He's nice. You'll like him. And the particular issue? The GIW is causing a lot of problems. Jazz answers for Danny, who looks ready to launch into another long-winded rant. They've captured a few ghosts and experimented on them. It's incredibly unethical from a scientist standpoint, but no one's stopping them, and the other ghosts are getting really nervous. The eyeballs want to declare war on the mortal realm. What? Danny scrutinizes her siblings. Danny looks exhausted. You're not going to let that happen, right? Of course not, Jazz assures. At the same time, Danny shakes his head. The observants are always looking for a reason to cause trouble, Danny explains. They're convinced we need to act fast and squash the whole thing. I've consulted with Clockwork, and he says that they're concerned about the futures where GIW figure out how to destroy the zone and essentially collapse the entire infinite realms and all connected universes. That does sound pretty bad, Danny says, worrying her bottom lip between her teeth. Why exactly would anyone want to destroy their own world? Right? But I'm not going to let that happen, Danny assures her. They're worried about a possibility that has 3% possibility of happening, and that's without me intervening. What's the possibility of it happening if you do declare war? It's Danny's turn to bite his lip. 0. We're a Legion of the Dead. There's no universe which they win against us. Danny fidgets with his spoon some more. But there's so many casualties on both sides. I'm absolutely not going to let that happen. You're too young to deal with this, Jazz sighs. We all are. Danny sighs too, leaning back in her chair. Well, we know the choice the old king would have made. You may be too young for this, but you're also the only one who can. Danny nods, determined. And I will. But that's why you can't be in America right now, Danny. The GIW only has jurisdiction in America. You can't be here. I'm sorry, and you can? Danny shoots back. Half of Amity registers as a threat level on their equipment scale. I'm just one of them. The GIW would have to arrest us all, and they don't need to, since they closed down Amity's borders. Instead, none of us can legally leave. But you'll be the only ectoplasmic signature for miles. They'll attack you on sight. I can handle myself, Danny huffs. Besides, didn't you say they were mostly incompetent? Danny, frustrated, tugs at his hair and glares at her through the strands. Just because they're incompetent doesn't mean they're not dangerous. They've gotten some lucky shots on me, and they hurt. Jazz looks at him sadly, but she still firmly shuts him down. Danny, threatening or scaring her isn't going to work. Danny slumps down, sending Danny an apologetic look. Let's communicate more effectively, the psychologist in training instructs. Our motivation for asking you to stay out of America is because we're worried. You'll be actively hunted if you're detected, and we won't know if or when you get injured or caught. We do not think you can't take care of yourself, but this is a real threat. Is there any way you can postpone your time in America until this is resolved? Danny considers her words. Well, she does love avoiding her problems, and she doesn't have anything to prove by ignoring their warnings. She has a bond with a certain pretty boy acrobatic cop that she doesn't think she can just walk away from. The thought of disappearing to Australia or somewhere else makes her overwhelmingly guilty. She can't do that to him. She can't do that to herself. This is the first person she's gotten attached to like this since Danny. And honestly, it feels like more than what she and Danny have. She and Danny are family, and that will never change. He's afraid, but Danny won't hesitate to fight for him if he asks. But Dick? Well, he's quickly becoming family. That much is clear, but there's something else. Danny doesn't know. He's just where she wants to be. Ugh. Danny's gonna gag. When did she become so sappy? I can't, Danny tells them, genuinely regretful. I have someone waiting for me. Jazz and Danny blink up in surprise. She doesn't blame them. In the last 18 or so months, Danny's been traveling. She's never once mentioned to anyone. Who? Danny asks. Danny shrugs, keeping her gaze on the tablecloth. Just this guy I met in August. We've been hanging out. He's pretty cool, I guess. What? Danny demands. The same time, Jazz claps her hands together and says, That's wonderful! Danny whirls around to his older sister. How can you say that's great? She's 13! He whirls back to Danny and stabs an accusing finger in her direction. You're 13! No, you're a year old! You're an infant! You're too young for a guy! Danny starts giggling at his outrage, and Jazz smacks him and yanks him back into his chair. Daniel Fenton, you're going to sit down and be supportive of the first connection your little sister has made in her life. Do you understand me? What about Wolf and Cujo? Danny objects defensively. They're ghosts, and they're your friends, but you won't stay for them. Danny gives her the stink eye. She's right, but come on. She's not that bad of a flight risk. You can't be dating, Danny mutters dejectedly. You're just a baby. Knock that off, Danny snaps. I was matured to 12, even if I didn't experience those years. And I'm not dating him. He's like, I don't know, a friend? Or like a brother, I guess. She can feel her face getting a little warm, and Jazz and Danny glance at each other before they start simultaneously cooing. Oh, you have a family now, Danny crows, looking downright gleeful. Shut up, Danny grumbles. I can't just ghost him. That sobers Danny up. You're right. If even you can admit you're attached, your core certainly is. That makes this so much more difficult now. Jazz nods. But we can come up with a solution. One of Mom and Dad's inventions, maybe? I could probably figure something out, Danny agrees. They got a lot of ghost sensor-like stuff. If I just reverse the input and output, I can scramble the other sensors. I have to work on something. Can you at least stay until it's done? Danny considers. Danny's genuinely concerned about this threat. He can make something to keep her safe and let her stay in America with Dick. Can I come back when it's done? Danny shakes his head. I need it to tailor it to your signature. It's going to take a lot of troubleshooting, and I need you here for it. Besides, Clockwork insists you come here now, so he clearly thinks you shouldn't be in America right now. All right, she can do that. She nods. I'll stay.
as long as it doesn't take too long.
Danny shrugs. I don't know how difficult this will be, but I can't imagine it'll take more than 2 weeks. I mean, Mom and Dad already did all the hard stuff. We're just doing some rewiring.
Fine, she says, but I have to let him know I'm going to be out longer than I said.
You can't call him? Jazz asks.
He gave me his number at one point, but we can't use phones very well, so I didn't keep track of it.
Danny's pretty sure she lost it, though. Probably to the washing machine when she washed her clothes that first night she stayed with Dick.
I'll just take Wolf. We'll be back in a few hours.
All right, Danny agrees, finally turning his attention back to his food. In a couple of days, all right? Let's make sure Clockwork thinks it's safe and we can get you to Frostbite for a checkup. She wasn't supposed to be back until next Thursday anyway, so staying until Saturday or Sunday before making the trip back to Bloodhaven should be fine. Danny agrees too. Jazz sighs in relief at the compromise, and they all get back to eating, mostly, ectoplasmic dinner, or pecking at it in Jazz's case. Their meeting with Clockwork Friday morning yielded a light suggestion that Danny not return to Bloodhaven until after Sunday, 30 minutes after midnight on Sunday, so Monday, technically, was the absolute soonest she can get Danny to agree to. So at 12:30 on the dot, Danny leaves Wolf behind in the shadows of the trees and barrels into the city. It takes a solid hour and a half to get to Dick's building, and it's half the time it took before when she was just casually walking. He lives pretty close to the center of the city, so the forest is a bit of a walk, and it's way too late for the buses to be running. Danny gets to the building just past 2 in the morning. Dick almost never goes to bed before 3, so Danny's not too worried about waking him up. She is kind of worried he'll be at work, though. She doesn't want to explain all this over the phone. She's fresh out of the zone, her ectoplasm is topped off, and the electronics should be extra buggy. As usual, she's allowed in only a moment after she hits the buzzer, security letting her in with a smile and wave. The security officers at the front desk Danny had first mistaken as some kind of rich receptionist had grown familiar with her. There are 4 of them, each taking different semi-consistent shifts. Danny's got to know them all. Tonight is Dave, and Danny takes a couple seconds to say hi.
My man,
she crows, jogging up to him, giving him a clap on the hand that turns into a fist bump.
I missed ya.
The tattoo man grins down at her. Hey, Danny, I was wondering why you weren't darkening my doorstep recently. Danny steps back with a wide smile.
I was visiting someone. I actually stopped by because I'm going to be a little longer than I thought. Dick on shift tonight?
Dave's grin falls. Actually, about that, Dick asked me to send you up so he can talk to you. Mentioned you don't have a phone.
Is he all right?
Danny demands, a thread of panic gripping her core.
Did he get injured? Shot?
Relax, the man says, laughing a little. He's just fine, sweetheart. Dick was just called home to take care of some family business, so he's back in Gotham for the time being. I'm sure he'll tell you all about it.
He left?
Danny echoes. He isn't here? He went to Gotham? He couldn't wait until Thursday? Is Danny really not all that important to him? No, she needs to calm down, not jump to conclusions. She needs to talk to him. He probably has a perfectly reasonable explanation why he just abandoned her. Stay calm. Friday night. Let me get you up to his place. You can call him on his fancy wall phone.
Yeah.
All right, Danny mutters, trailing after the bulky man to the elevator. He swipes his card to the override lock and scans his thumbprint. Normally, Danny just goes right up since Dick approves her request to come up. This is weird. She doesn't like it. I'll see you soon, Dave promises in his city drawl. Danny nods, still a little out of it. The elevator climbs the floors with the same speed it always does, and Danny tries to focus on the rising numbers rather than her own thoughts. He just left. No, he probably has a good reason. He clearly thought of her, making sure security knew to let her in, expecting a call. Like Jazz always says, she has to wait for the other person's explanation before getting angry. She needs to stay calm and be reasonable. The penthouse is dark when she's finally let out of the elevator. Danny takes notice of Dick's lack of shoes. She wanders inside and checks the fridge. There's no takeout, no milk or cheese or anything else that might go bad. She checks the cupboards, which she notices are stocked with non-perishables, with a sticky note labeling the food for her to grab. She opens the money drawer. $2,000 in varying bills, another sticky note on the stack that also labels the money as hers, along with a scribble of numbers she assumes is an address. What is he doing? Leaving $2,000 in an unlocked drawer in his apartment? Is he stupid? Danny shuts the door and looks in Dick's bedroom. The family pictures are still there, but a cursory search through his closet shows most of his favorite clothes have been taken. She looks in his closet and finds the suitcase gone. A shrill ringing of the wall tablet phone thing makes her jump, and she walks out of Dick's room to go pick up the call. Instead of the regular, off, Richard Grayson, the caller ID reads, Wayne, Manor. Manor? What in the realms? She's about to let it go to voicemail, but on the last ring, it answers itself. Danny? She hears, the voice crackly, but unmistakable.
Dick,
She replies coolly.
did I come at a bad time?
Be reasonable, Danny. Petty remarks are not reasonable. I'm so sorry, Dick starts. He sounds wrung out. It was a family emergency. My dad came down with something and he's off in the hospital. And look, is the connection bad on your end? It's kind of staticky. It must be the combination of the ectoplasm and her crackling rise of emotions.
Is your dad gonna be okay?
Yes, probably. He's got the best doctors with him, but he needs my help down here in Gotham. I left you some money, though, in the usual drawer. It should be enough if you want to catch a ride down. It should be enough for her to take a first-class flight to Australia, but yeah, a short bus ride to Gotham might be too far. I wrote the address, too. It should be right on the top. We definitely have space. There's already a room set out for you if you want it.
I came to tell you I'm extending my stay.
Danny interrupts, suddenly feeling suffocated. He left and just expected her to follow him down there, apparently to a manor, which is apparently the manor of the Wayne family, whom Danny's only heard in passing, but frequently enough to know they're the richest of the rich. She came down here expecting to see someone she's rapidly gotten attached to, smiling wide and welcoming her back with open arms that she dodged with a laugh. This whole situation threw her off. She wants to be angry. But is it really fair to be angry if it was an emergency?
Something came up.
Oh, Dick says, his voice distorted. Well, do you know when you'll be back? I can drive up there and pick you up. Or if I'm busy, I can send one of my brothers.
I don't know when I'll be back.
Danny snaps.
I mean, since you're busy, I think I'll just go back to traveling like usual.
She stabs the button to hang up, but it doesn't do anything. Danny wrinkles her nose at it, wondering if her touch isn't registering anymore. But Dick's panic rambling makes her think he just froze the button or something. Can people do that? No. Wait. At least take my number. Or wait, don't you want to explore Gotham? There's so much history here. Danny pushes the button for the elevator, but it doesn't open immediately.
You can't tell me where to go next,
she says stubbornly. Yeah, Gotham is on her list. There's a million heroes in that city, and Danny's even heard of the rumor that the whole city itself is a ghost. Gotham is one of the cities she's came to America to see in the first place. She's just off kilter, and she feels angry. But she knows she shouldn't, and he set up a room for her. She doesn't know if she's ready to have her own room. It kind of feels stifling in here, and she needs some air. She pushes the elevator button again, but still, nothing happens. Danny, wait, please, let me explain.
Did you lock the elevator?
Danny cuts him off, jamming the button again. I just haven't given permission to open. Dick replies, and well, his name says it all. Danny growls at the screen, even knowing he can't see her. I'm leaving, she declares. Just let me explain. 2 minutes. He isn't going to let her out, so Danny does what the next most reasonable thing. She turns on her heel, bolts to the window, and throws herself out of it. There's a fire escape, of course. She's not that dramatic. I left you guys on a really bad cliffhanger, didn't I?
Well, that was the end of chapter 7. Danny standing up for herself, which, slay queen, we got you, we behind you 100%. Dick is not being good right now. Dick, no, not good Dick. I was honestly quite angry while reading it myself the first time. So, I'm gonna leave it at that. I want to hear your guys' own reactions to this chapter. This is going to be very interesting. With that being said, I'm at or about over 100 subscribers, which, wow! Yay, I'm so excited, you don't understand. I'm like, they like it. They like me. They like my channel. So anyway, I'm very, very happy. And I probably have to go because I left you guys on a really bad cliffhanger, which means I have to quickly work out chapter 8 for you guys. Because I know I get very impatient when I'm left on a cliffhanger. So I'm going to get to that. So this is Jane Doe, and I'll see you guys in our next reading session. Bye!